A flight attendant's assumption led to an unforgettable lesson that no one on board would ever forget. The first-class cabin hummed with quiet conversations as passengers settled into their spacious seats, adjusting their belongings and preparing for takeoff. The atmosphere was refined, peaceful, until a sudden interruption shattered the tranquility. With an air of authority, a flight attendant strode purposefully down the aisle, her eyes scanning the cabin with practiced efficiency. Then, without hesitation, she halted abruptly in front of a young boy. Her expression was unreadable, but her voice carried a firm edge. "You need to move. This seat isn't meant for you." The boy clutched his ticket as if it were a lifeline, his small fingers tightening around the paper. His voice wavered, but he spoke with quiet certainty. "But this is my seat." Her lips thinned into a tight line. "I don't think so." A ripple of unease moved through the nearby passengers. Some exchanged glances, their curiosity piqued. Others averted their eyes, unwilling to intervene. No one spoke. No one questioned her. But what they didn't know, what no one in that cabin could have possibly known, was that this boy wasn't just any passenger. And by the time this flight touched down, the flight attendant would come to regret the assumptions she had made that day. Welcome to Inspiring Real Stories, where we bring you powerful narratives that challenge perspectives and leave lasting impressions. If you love stories with deep meaning and valuable lessons, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Now let's return to the flight, because what happens next will change everything. The boy remained in his seat, his feet barely reaching the floor, his hands resting gently on the armrests. Through the window, the sky stretched wide and endless. This was his first time flying alone, a special reward from his father, a recognition of his incredible achievements in school. It wasn't just about sitting in first class. It was about earning his place, about hard work being acknowledged. For a fleeting moment, he allowed himself to bask in that feeling of pride. Then the voice came. "Excuse me, young man." A shadow fell over him as the flight attendant loomed close. The gold lettering on her name tag glinted under the soft cabin lights. There was something rigid in her stance, something unyielding in her expression. "Are you sure you're in the right seat?" The boy felt a flicker of unease. Still, he reached into the pocket of his hoodie and retrieved his ticket. His voice was steady. "Yes, ma'am. Seat 3B. She barely glanced at the ticket before shaking her head. "This is a first-class seat." The boy sat up a little straighter. "I know." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Where are your parents?" Something in his stomach twisted. "I'm traveling alone." The flight attendant let out a sharp breath, her patience clearly wearing thin. "There must be some kind of mistake," she said, her tone firmer now. "This seat is reserved for first-class passengers only." A hush fell over the nearby rows. Some passengers turned their heads, watching the scene unfold. Others quickly looked away, pretending not to notice. The boy's grip on his ticket tightened. "But this is my seat." The flight attendant forced a tight, professional smile. But behind it, something was clear. She didn't believe him. And in that moment, the boy realized something. It didn't matter what was printed on his ticket. She had already decided that he didn't belong. "There's been a misunderstanding. You need to gather your belongings and move to economy." The word struck like a slap, burning hot against his pride. Heat crept up his neck, spreading through his chest, not from anger, but from something heavier, something colder. He wasn't being difficult. He wasn't causing trouble. He had proof, clear, undeniable proof, that he belonged here. Yet somehow, with every passing second, the weight of the unspoken judgment pressing down on him grew unbearable. The air in the first-class cabin suddenly felt stifling. The glances from the other passengers, the whispers just below hearing, the silence of those who chose to look away. It was suffocating. Slowly, reluctantly, he reached for his backpack. His fingers curled around the straps as he forced himself to stand. His legs felt unsteady, as though the very ground beneath him had shifted. The flight attendant didn't offer to help. She didn't soften. She merely lifted her chin and motioned toward the back of the plane, as if dismissing an inconvenience. As he stepped into the aisle, the weight of unseen eyes bore into him. Row after row of first-class passengers watched him walk past. Some lowered their eyes. Others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. No one spoke. No one stood up. By the time he reached economy, the world felt different. The space was smaller, the air was heavier. As he sank into an empty seat, his fingers instinctively reached for his phone. His hands trembled slightly as he typed. They made me move to the back. Said I couldn't sit in first class. I had my ticket. She didn't believe me. The reply came almost instantly. What do you mean they made you move? Who made you move? His pulse quickened. The flight attendant. She said there was a mistake. She wouldn't listen. A long pause, then, what's the flight number? His fingers hesitated for only a moment before typing it out. He hit send. Seconds later, another message appeared. Stay where you are, I'll handle it. He exhaled slowly, his grip on the phone tightening. He didn't know exactly what his father meant, but something about those words told him. This wasn't over. At the front of the plane, Miss Parker returned to the galley with a sense of satisfaction. Another problem solved, another disruption handled. A younger flight attendant, Sarah, hesitated as she carefully placed a tray of glasses onto the counter. Her movements were slower than usual, deliberate, thoughtful. The question had been sitting on her tongue, but now she couldn't hold it back. Was there an issue with his ticket? She asked cautiously. Miss Parker scoffed, rolling her eyes. Please, you saw him. Do you really think he paid for first class? Something in Sarah's stomach twisted painfully. She had served passengers from all walks of life in first class, business executives, families, solo travelers. But the way Miss Parker said it, the certainty in her voice, the assumption so deeply ingrained, it made Sarah uneasy. But you didn't even check the system, Sarah pointed out, her voice quieter now. Miss Parker waved a dismissive hand, her confidence unshaken. Trust me, I've been doing this a long time. I know when someone's in the wrong section. Then the intercom crackled. Miss Parker, please report to the cockpit immediately. The air in the galley shifted. It was rare, highly unusual, for a flight attendant to be summoned to the cockpit mid-flight. Something was wrong. Miss Parker smoothed the front of her uniform and squared her shoulders before stepping through the narrow door. The moment she entered, she saw the captain standing stiffly at attention. On the in-flight phone screen, a man sat in a sleek office, his hands folded neatly on the desk. His expression was unreadable, his presence alone commanding. But there was something else, something in the air, in the way the captain stood, in the way silence clung to the space. Miss Parker, the man on the screen said, his voice smooth but firm. Do you know who I am? She swallowed, suddenly, aware of how dry her throat had become. No, sir. The captain's voice broke through the quiet. This is Mr. Thompson, the owner of this airline. Her breath hitched. You removed his son from first class, the captain continued, his tone clipped, controlled. Without verifying his ticket, without checking the system, without reason. Miss Parker felt the blood drain from her face. Mr. Thompson's voice remained calm, but each word was deliberate, weighted. You're going to walk back to economy and personally return my son to his seat. A pause, then. And when this flight lands, you will explain yourself to the executive board. Miss Parker moved through the cabin, her usual confidence nowhere to be found. The murmurs of first-class passengers barely registered in her ears as she approached the economy section. And then she saw him. He sat there scrolling through his phone, quiet and composed. Not angry, not making a scene, just waiting. For a moment she hesitated, then forcing her voice into something resembling professionalism, she cleared her throat. Sir, there's been a misunderstanding. I'd like to escort you back to your original seat. He blinked, his expression unreadable. A misunderstanding? She nodded quickly. Yes, but in that moment they both knew. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was something far more telling, far more significant, and it was too late to take it back. There was an error in seating. The words felt hollow, a weak attempt at undoing what had already been done. He tilted his head, his gaze steady. But I had my ticket. You saw it, and you still told me to move. A murmur rippled through the surrounding passengers. They had witnessed everything. They had heard every word, and now they watched, waiting. Miss Parker swallowed. The authority she had carried so confidently before now felt like a fragile shell, cracking under the weight of the truth. I may have made a mistake in judgment, she admitted, her voice quieter than before. But I'd like to correct it now. The boy didn't move. He studied her, his expression unreadable. Then slowly he reached into his pocket and tapped something on his phone. A moment later, Miss Parker's work tablet vibrated in her hands. A message from Executive Office. Take your time. Make her understand what she did. Her breath hitched. Her heart pounded. The boy stood, finally breaking the silence. I'll go back, he said. But first I want to know, why? Miss Parker blinked. Why did you think I didn't belong here? A sharp silence fell over the cabin. The weight of his question pressed down on her, heavier than any reprimand from her superiors. She opened her mouth, then closed it. She had no answer. And in that silence, she finally understood what it meant to be judged. Not for who you are, but for who someone else assumes you to be. Lessons we can learn from this story. Sharayon. Never judge someone by their appearance. The flight attendant assumed the boy didn't belong in first class simply because of how he looked. But the truth was the complete opposite. This story is a stark reminder that prejudice and snap judgments can lead to real harm. We must always seek facts rather than rely on personal biases. 2. Patience and composure are powerful. The boy could have yelled, he could have caused a scene, but instead he chose dignity. He contacted his father, stayed calm, and let the truth speak for itself. In the end, his quiet strength forced the flight attendant to confront her mistake in a way that anger never could. 3. Justice and fairness matter. The boy's father didn't let the injustice slide. He took the right steps, not with rage, but with firm, decisive action. This sends a powerful message. When faced with unfair treatment, we shouldn't accept it in silence. We should stand up for ourselves in ways that demand respect. 4. Small decisions can have big consequences. The flight attendant thought her decision was minor, a routine correction. But that single act, based on bias rather than fact, led to serious repercussions. It's a reminder that our choices, no matter how small, affect the people around us. A moment of judgment can leave a lasting scar. This story isn't just about a flight. It's about something much bigger, how we treat people when no one is watching. It's a lesson in overcoming bias, treating others with fairness, and knowing when to stand up for ourselves. At some point in life, we will all face moments of unfair judgment. The real question is, how will we respond? Will we react with anger? Will we walk away in silence? Or will we, like the boy in this story, hold our ground with dignity and let our actions speak louder than words? If this story made you think, let us know in the comments. What would you have done? And if you love inspiring, thought-provoking stories, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Talk Story. Because sometimes the most powerful lessons come from the most unexpected moments.